All right, we're going to continue on from where we were yesterday, talking about Gregor Mendel and his pea plants. Gregor was the monk, kind of bored. Why are these plants different? Why is one tall and one short? One have purple flowers, one have white flowers. What's the big deal here? So he was using pea plants. Now, pea plants worked really well for Gregor's experiments because of one main reason. They have a very short lifespan. So you can collect a lot of data in a short amount of time. So he could grow plants. They could have seeds, and he could record, oh, this one's tall, this one's short, this one has purple flowers, all of that. Then he could take the seeds, plant them again, and grow new ones. So he could do many generations of pea plants in a short amount of time. Now, if he decided to do this with oak trees, this would be not very good because an oak tree can live hundreds of years. So if he planted an acorn, he would be dead before that oak tree was full-sized. So the short lifespan is why the pea plants worked really well. When I was in high school, we did something similar with fruit flies. In, I believe it was my sophomore biology class, we were talking genetics, and we got fruit flies. And what we would do is there were some variations in the fruit flies. Some of them had single wings, and some had double wings on each side. And then some of them had red eyes, and some had blue eyes, or green eyes, sorry, red and green. And what we do is we got these fruit flies, and they were in little jars, and every day we'd come to class and we'd count them. And so on day one, we'd count and we'd see how many of these were red-eyed, how many were green-eyed, how many had single wings and double wings. And then we'd leave them in the jar, and in that 24 hours till the next day we came to class, those flies would lay eggs, die, and those eggs would hatch into new fruit flies. So we'd be looking at their kids, their second generation. And we do the same thing, mark down their colors, eyes, and their wings, and then they'd lay eggs, die, and those eggs would hatch. And so by the end of the week, we had 5 generations of data. Okay, pea plants are the same thing. Not quite as fast, but the lifespan of a fruit fly is about 24 hours. So it worked out really well. If you do this with an elephant or with a tree of some sort, you're probably not going to get as good a data. So why don't you go ahead and write this down? Pea plants reproduce very fast and have easily identifiable traits. Pea plants reproduce very fast and have easily identifiable traits. Don't need to write anything here. Colors of seeds, tall versus short, round and wrinkly seeds. Go ahead and write this down. He designed an experiment where he crossed green seed pea plants with yellow seed pea plants. And he called this the P1 generation. If I'm going too fast, you can always pause. So he took 2 plants and he crossed them. By cross them, it means he made them have babies. Now with plants, that means he pollinated them. He took the pollen off of one plant and put it on the other, from the stamen to the pistil. So basically, he took sperm and took it to the egg. So he took a green plant, a green-seeded plant, and crossed it with a yellow-seeded plant. They had babies, and he called this the P1 generation. I think of it as the parent 1 generation. Let's say I was going to do a study about my family, and I was going to start with my parents. Maybe we're talking about eye color. And my dad has green eyes and my mom has brown eyes. Okay, that would be the P1 generation, the very first generation. Go ahead and write this down. The result was all the offspring of the P1 generation had yellow seeds. This was called the F1 generation. I think of it as family 1 generation. So he crossed a green plant, green seeded plant, with a yellow seeded plant, and he got all yellow seeds. So if you had to guess, do you think green or yellow was the dominant trait? And you, of course, would all say yellow. So the P1 generation is the parent generation. The F1 would be their offspring. I think of it as family 1 generation. All right, and so he had a green, he crossed it with a yellow, and he got all yellows. Then, go ahead and write this down. He took 2 of these yellow seeds and crossed them. He took 2 of these yellow seeds and he crossed them. So we had a yellow, have babies with yellow. What do you think he got? Go ahead and write this down. The result was that some of the offspring were yellow and some were green, and he called this the F2 generation. I think of it as family 2 generation. So if my parents were the P1 and my wife and I would be if my wife and I were the F1, then my kids would be the F2 if we were tracking eye color. Now in this instance, we took a yellow, we crossed it with a yellow, and we got some yellow and some green. So there we are. A yellow, we crossed it, and we got 75% was yellow and 25% was green. So basically out of 4, 3 out of 4 were yellow, 1 out of 4 was green. So you would say, go ahead and write this, yellow was the dominant trait and green was the recessive trait. Yellow, when it went head to head with green, it won. The yellow showed and the green was still there, but it didn't show. So it was the recessive trait. I do want you to write down the word probability and the bullet there. Probability, the science that helps you determine the chance that something will take place. Probability, the science that helps you determine the chance that something will take place. Gregor Mendel wanted to figure out the probability of the different traits happening in his pea plants. He wanted to be able to predict it. Now when you figure out, if I asked you to figure out the probability of flipping a penny and it coming up heads, what would you say the probability was? There is 1 heads and there are 2 sides of the coin. So the coin could either be heads or tails. And if I said the probability of turning heads, you'd say 1 out of 2 or 50%. Well, Gregor tried doing the same thing with his pea plants. What's the probability of getting the certain colored flowers, or the tall or the short? Don't worry about writing this. But after many experiments, Mendel knew the probability was great that he would get the same outcome each time he did the experiment. So basically, he did it a bunch of times and got the same results. There we go.